Evening, everybody. That's a good start. Evening, everybody. It was like I was talking a different language. Oh, put my teeth in. Good evening. Friday, episode 63. And a slightly different one than normal. So, if you've not been here before, good evening, Paul. Good evening, Wendy. Normally, I would talk about what deliveries have arrived this week, talk you through the product, kind of what's going on over the weekend, so on and so forth. But this week, I thought I would do a focus more on the pre-loved section of the business. Now, if you've ever been in the shop, which many of you have, probably about 85% of what I have on the shop floor in terms of product are the brands that I work with, brand new product, full price, and about 10-15% of the stock is pre-loved. Now, some people call it pre-loved, some people call it pre-owned. I suppose you can still call it vintage, I guess, it's the same thing. I call it pre-loved. And how it works is this. I have customers that will come the door, generally with a good amount of stuff. And what we'll do is we'll go through it and I will pick out the very best of what they have. Now on that, and now this is important, is for 21 years, my business has been based on working with brands, still is, primarily, and probably always will be. No, it will be. So whatever comes in pre-loved or whatever I include in pre-loved needs to be nearly as good as those. So I turn away a lot more than I take. So ideally people bring that in washed and ironed. And when I pick out what we want or what I want, I'll sell it on their behalf or your behalf. And then when it's sold, it's a 50-50 split. So you guys can get cash or you can get store credit. You can even trade it against something brand new, however you want to do it. Right, now, that all sounds great in theory. Also sounds a bit bloody boring. Let me give you some examples of some of the pre-loved stock that I have currently. Just to give you an idea of, one, I guess the brands that I sell well and what I would consider and what always do great with the customers. And number two, the condition, which is the most important part. Right, so, for example, the brands that always do well for me tend to be streetwear brands. So it might be like, I don't know, like a Stussy, or I suppose kind of workwear brands, Carhartts, Dickies, that kind of stuff. And also sort of kind of premium high street. So it might be Reiss, All Saints, that type of stuff. And then to a degree, the more vintage sort of brands like your Ralph Lauren's and things like that. So to give you a flavour, right, let's give you a flavour. First up, so if I do an overshirt, now at a glance, if this was on a black hanger, which is what all my full price stuff is on, you wouldn't know that's pre-owned. Now this is a beautiful Paul Smith overshirt that's coming this week. So Paul Smith always does well, but I think as far as design, I guess designer or high-end goes, Paul Smith is probably the ceiling. Now I've had products in the past that might be like a Belstaffs, maybe an exception. I've sold the odd bit, but like really expensive, almost like your Monclers, Canada Goose. You know, like really expensive at full price. Really doesn't work with me. Doesn't work with my customers. Paul Smith, that sort of level, that high-end sort of high street, I guess, works great. Condition-wise, as you can see, it's perfect. That's the level of if you're thinking of bringing some pre-owned stock into me, that's what it needs to look like. Stuff like this, Reiss always goes well. So I guess from sort of kind of if premium within my pre-owned or pre-loved, it's around this kind of thing. T-shirts have a little bit more. I have a bit more variety. So yeah, you will still get like the Paul Smiths and the Reese's of this world. You would also get, as I say, stuff like this. All Saints. That's literally just come in. And as I say, to be honest, if I had more All Saints on a rail and it was on a black hanger, you wouldn't know that's pre-loved. And that's the level. That's really where I want to sit. Anything below that, I will always pass on it. But I'll be polite. I'm always polite. So you get a flavour of sort of kind of t-shirts. You know, my t-shirts might run from an All Saints through to, like I say, CP. CP if you kind of more terracey, or I'll have stuff like Norse Project, Folk, APC, that kind of level of brands, or those types of brands. Carhartts, I have loads of Carhartts. T-shirts, I'm a little bit broader. Denims, I always seem to get lots of Levi's, but again, Levi's perform really well. You know what I mean? There's not a blemish, there's not a mark on any of these. These are brand new. You know, I'll get brand new stock in, nudie jeans. That's the level. And sadly, if it doesn't hit that level, you know, it goes back to the customer. So your denim's there. Outerwear is probably the trickiest one. Outerwear is a hard one to crack, because there's not really one brand that I've really had lots of success with. I've had bits, but it all tends to sit within your t-shirts, your sweats, the overshirts, shirts not so much, and the footwear, but we'll come on to the footwear. So outerwear tends to be a little bit more commercial, that works well. So kind of North Faces, stuff like that, always tend to sell well. But as I say, for me, the first port of call is always the condition. It needs to be near new, realistically. Just really, for a number of reasons. One, because I like my standard on the shop floor to be there. But equally, when I put my teeth back in, it's about achieving a result for a price that kind of is enough meat on the bone for me, makes it worth my while doing the presentation to customers, doing the presentation, getting on the shop floor, and also for the customers at the other end of it, so they get a little bit of money out of it as well. You know, we don't give it away. In fact, it's probably a good time to talk about the pricing. So pricing strategy for me is, so for example, you know, this North Face coat, I will find that on the World Wide Web, brand new. So I will know kind of, right, this coat, for it, I've not researched this one yet, but let's say this coat is 150 quid, brand new. Generally work around 30% underneath that as a starting point. So, you know, I might start that at maybe, say 95 quid. We sell at 95 quid, you know, and 50-50 down the middles. I'm more than happy to take that, and the customer's probably more than happy with that as well. So generally 30% under an RRP is where I will always start the pricing for items. Footwear. Again, whereas footwear is tricky. It's actually brand-wise where I will find customers most brand loyal. So, for example, I'll put these down. You know, a Nike Jordan 1 low, something like this. Condition-wise, it needs to be as good as these. You know, virtually brand new. Nike always does great. So if you've got Nike trainers, or if you've got a collection that you want to trim down, Nike does great. Adidas, anything like this. More so kind of the retro stuff. So kind of your Tobaccos, your Sambas, your Gazelles. More so sort of like the Adidas Originals sells better for me than, let's say, sort of kind of more athleisure kind of thing. So if you guys have got stuff like this, it's the usual suspects of footwear. Nike, Adidas. Saucony's have done okay in the past. New Balance have always done well. So yeah, for footwear, if you've got footwear you want to sell, it's the usual suspects really. Anything other than those, either side, can stick a little bit. So, you know, equally, it's a learning curve for me, because there's lots of brands that I will never get the chance to work with, because, you know, some of these brands are huge brands. I'm only one small account, and they won't deal with an account as small as me. And I get to handle these products. It's great to work with some other brands that I'll never get a chance to work with through Pre-Loved. So it is really, really it's interesting for me. It's a bit of a product geek, but it's great for the business. So yeah, if you want to get involved with Pre-Loved, they're really the parameters. So Wash and Iron Prime, ideally. Brand shortlist, I would probably say Paul Smith's, Reese's, Carhartts, Stussys, All Saints, Nike, Adidas, New Balances. Nothing too niche. Commercial, but cool commercial. That's really where the sweet spot is for me. And that is across the board. Apparel, footwear as well. We get the odd accessory, you know, so it might be a cap. or it might be a hat. I'd say if it's the right brand, generally, it's not an issue. And in a nutshell, yeah, they're the brands. Bring it in, let's take a look at it, and then when I sell it on your behalf, it is a 50-50 split down the middle. So it does take away the headache of it's just stuck in the box room at home. You haven't got time, or you can't be bothered to do a vintage. You can't be bothered or have time to do an eBay, a Depop, all these platforms. And really, the success I have here is because people come into obviously a nice environment, into a nice shop, but because they can try it on, or they can touch it and feel it, and they can see how nice quality these items are. Generally, the price that we put it out at, which is, as you know, is competitive to start off with, people are happy with. I very, very rarely get somebody go, mate, it's on 100 quid, would you take 50? I'm counting on one hand that times that's happened in the last couple of years. So we price it fairly, but we price it pretty keenly as well. So yeah, it's tangible. So it works really well. So if you guys are thinking of getting rid of some stuff, haven't got time, or simply haven't got the energy to do it, bring it in. As I say, footwear at the minute has been a really hot area. Clothing, always happy to look at. So hopefully, I hope that makes sense. And it kind of seeing the stuff that I've shown you gives you an idea of the level that it needs to be. So with that said, I'm open tomorrow and Sunday, as always. And I'm fingers crossed it's going to stop raining and stop being so bloody cold. Even Steely. It's going to be dry, I think. So fingers crossed for some dry weather. 10 till 5 tomorrow, 11:4 on Sunday, and you got me both days. So yeah, good opportunity. Weekends are always a good opportunity. I get quite a lot of people, that's when they bring in the pre-love stock, because obviously, you know, people are working during the week. So I do get quite a lot of people who walk in, having put it together during the week. So if you're one of those people, now's the time. Bring your trainers, bring your clothes. Let's take a look at it, because you could have some absolute treasure. As always, there's stuff going on the website all the time. Room14menswear.co.uk, and as I mention every time, sign up for the newsletter and you'll get 10% off your first order. That always runs, so save yourself some money there as well. One last thing, actually. Evening, Paul. Yes, I've got loads of regular customers, but you can never have too many. So therefore, I've got a job for you. If you've got friends or people you know, associates, that, you know what, like what you're wearing because you bought from me before, or kind of like the brands that I sell, please spread the word. It's only little old me in the shop, so any sort of free publicity, especially word of mouth publicity, is more valuable than you think. So yeah, if you think there's anybody might be into what I do point them in the direction of the shop, or if they're not local, point them in the direction of my socials, because the more eyes that are on Room 14 allows me to kind of buy more cool things for you guys to look at. So it kind of works in a cycle, doesn't it? Other than that, if you're not in to see me this weekend, and you're all busy doing whatever you're doing, have a brilliant weekend. I've got my fingers crossed for dry weather for everyone. Fingers crossed, it's a busy one as well. The last couple of weeks have felt a lot more normal now. So it's like my year starts in March. Last couple of weeks, we've started to get back onto some good action on the shop floor. And then lastly, fingers crossed, I'm hoping for a United win on Sunday. Other than that, have a lovely weekend. Always a pleasure. I'll see you next Friday. We've got deliveries next week. Deus, Penfield, and I'm trying to get one more over the line. But I like to keep that secret. See you next week. Take care.